The parking lot of Dorothy's Diner was quiet at 9:47 p.m. Too quiet for a Tuesday night in coastal California, where the ocean wind usually carried the sound of distant traffic and the cry of gulls settling in for the evening. Then came the sound that shattered everything. Crack, boot leather against ribs. The kind of impact that makes grown men wince. The kind that breaks bones if delivered with enough hate. Titan yelped, not a bark, not a growl. A yelp of pain that cut through the salt air like a blade through silk. The German shepherd stumbled sideways, his left rear leg, the one that already carried a limp from Kandahar, buckling beneath him. 9 years of loyal service to his country, 7 years sniffing out IEDs that would have turned American soldiers into pink mist, and now this. A boot to the ribs from a kid who'd never known a hard day in his life. Damian Caldwell laughed. 25 years old, 6'2" of entitled muscle poured into designer jeans and a polo shirt that cost more than most people earned in a week. His blonde hair caught the diner's neon light as he pulled his leg back for another kick. "Filthy mutt tried to bite me," he said to his companions. "Somebody needs to teach it some manners." Preston Ashworth leaned against a silver Mercedes, 24 years of senatorial privilege, wrapped in khakis and a smirk. "Your dad'll buy you a new pair of shoes, bro. That thing probably has fleas." Scarlett Montgomery stood beside them, scrolling through her phone with manicured nails that had never done a day's work. 23 years old and beautiful in the way that money can buy perfect teeth, perfect skin, perfect hair that fell in calculated waves over her shoulders. "It's literally disgusting," she said without looking up. "Why is there even a dog in the parking lot? This place is such a dump." None of them noticed the man who just walked out of the diner's side entrance. Not yet. Inside the diner, a different kind of violence was unfolding. Grace Sullivan's head snapped back as Scarlett's fingers twisted in her dark hair. The pain was white-hot and immediate, running from her scalp down her spine like electricity. Her prosthetic leg, the one that never quite fit right, the one she couldn't afford to get properly adjusted, caught on the edge of the booth. She went down hard. Her left knee cracked against the tile floor with a sound that made the few remaining customers look away. Not at her. Never at her. Looking away was easier. Safer. 22 years old, and Grace had learned that lesson well. People looked away when things got ugly. They always had. "Oops," Scarlett said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Did the cripple trip again?" Preston's boot came down on Grace's right hand, not hard enough to break bones, just hard enough to pin her there against the cold tile that smelled like industrial cleaner and old grease and her own fear. "We asked nicely," Preston said, looking down at her like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "We said we wanted this booth, but you had to make it difficult." Grace's face pressed against the floor. She could see under the booth, now could see the feet of the other diners. Work boots, sneakers, heels, all of them carefully positioned away from her. All of them pretending not to notice. She'd seen those same feet 2 years ago when she'd testified about the accident. When she'd tried to tell the truth about the silver BMW that had come out of nowhere on Harbor and Fifth, about the smell of whiskey and burnt rubber, about dying twice in the back of an ambulance while her blood pooled on the pavement. The same feet that had carried people out of the courtroom when the charges against Damian Caldwell mysteriously disappeared. The same feet that walked past her now as if she didn't exist. "Please," Grace whispered. The word tasted like defeat. "I just need to finish my food." Scarlett laughed. It was the sound of breaking crystal. Sharp and expensive and utterly without mercy. Did she say please? Oh my God, she actually said please. Dorothy Martinez appeared at the edge of Grace's vision, her apron twisted in trembling hands. 60 years old, silver-haired, and built from steel that was currently bending under the weight of fear. She'd owned this diner for 30 years, served 3 generations of this town. Right now, her face was the color of old paper. "Please, Miss Montgomery," Dorothy said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There are other booths, nice ones by the window. I'll give you anything you want, on the house." Preston didn't even look at her. "Your diner failed its health inspection last month, didn't it, Mrs. Martinez?" Dorothy's hands stilled. "That was a mistake. We fixed everything." The inspector said, "The inspector works for people my father knows." Preston's smile was all teeth. "One phone call, and this place gets shut down permanently. Is that what you want?" The diner had gone completely silent now. 20 people pretending they couldn't hear, couldn't see. 20 people drowning in the same cowardice that had let Grace suffer for 2 years. She knew that silence. She'd been drowning in it since the night Damian Caldwell's BMW had turned her into a statistic that disappeared from every official record. Just go, mija, Dorothy whispered, her eyes wet. Please, just go. Grace tried to stand. Her prosthetic caught again. It always did. The alignment was off, and she couldn't afford the $800 to fix it, so it caught, and it hurt, and it reminded her every single day that she was broken in ways that money couldn't heal. She stumbled. Her hands slammed onto the table to catch herself. That's when Scarlett grabbed her hair again. Outside, Damian Caldwell pulled his leg back for a second kick at the limping dog. He didn't know that dog was Titan. Didn't know Titan was a 9-year-old German Shepherd who carried service number K9-847. Didn't know Titan had spent 7 years in Afghanistan and Iraq sniffing out the bombs that turned supply routes into killing fields. Didn't know Titan had alerted to 17 IEDs that would have vaporized American soldiers. Didn't know about the day in Kandahar when Titan had dragged his handler away from a secondary device, taking shrapnel in his right flank that left a scar like a lightning bolt across his ribs. And Damian Caldwell definitely didn't know that Titan's handler was standing 10 feet behind him, having just walked out of Dorothy's diner with a to-go bag in one hand and murder in his eyes. Colonel Garrett Hawk, retired discharged, done with wars that nobody won, stood perfectly still. 52 years old, 5'11", and built like a length of steel cable wrapped in weathered leather. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and a scar ran from his left eyebrow to his hairline, courtesy of a Taliban sniper who'd missed his shot by half an inch. He'd lost his mother to MS when he was 15. He'd lost 6 men under his command to IEDs and ambushes, and the 1,000 different ways that war found to break human beings. He'd lost count of how many times he'd watched good people suffer while bad people walked away unpunished. But he'd never, not once in 30 years of service, learned to walk past someone who needed help. Damian's boot was in mid-swing when Garrett moved. 3 strides. Fast and silent on the balls of his feet, the way they'd trained him at Coronado, the way you moved when a half second meant the difference between living and dying. His hand caught Damian's ankle mid-kick, twisted. Damian went down hard, his expensive shoes scraping across the asphalt as his tailbone hit the ground with a satisfying thud. Preston came off the Mercedes fast, but not fast enough. Garrett's elbow caught him in the solar plexus, controlled precise, exactly hard enough to fold him like a cheap lawn chair. Preston hit the ground, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Scarlett's scream brought people to the diner windows. Titan limped forward, his lip curled back from teeth that had been trained to take down enemy combatants. He didn't bite, didn't need to, just positioned himself between Garrett and the 3 kids, his amber eyes tracking every movement with the cold calculation of a professional. His vest read MWD K9 Unit 847. Titan, military working dog, not a pet, a partner. Damian scrambled backward on his elbows, his face red with rage and shock, and something he'd probably never felt before. Fear. What the hell, old man? That dog attacked me. I'm calling the cops. Garrett said nothing, just stood there with his weight balanced on both feet, hands loose at his sides, completely still in the way that predators are still before they strike. His eyes pale blue and utterly empty of mercy never left Damian's face. Inside the diner, Grace felt Scarlett's grip on her hair loosen, felt Preston's boot lift from her hand. She turned her head just enough to see through the window, saw a man she didn't know standing between 3 people who'd made her life hell, and a German Shepherd who looked like he'd walked through the gates of hell and come back scarred but unbroken. Saw the way the man stood, the way he didn't need to speak, the way his silence carried more threat than any words could. Saw hope for the first time in 2 years. Damian pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Do you know who I am? My father is Victor Caldwell. Victor Caldwell. 1 phone call and your life is over, old man. 1 phone call. Garrett's voice, when it finally came, was quiet, almost gentle, the kind of quiet that made smart people nervous. Make the call. Damian's thumb hovered over the screen. Inside, Dorothy had rushed to Grace's side, helping her up with trembling hands. Grace's scalp burned where Scarlett had yanked her hair. Her hand throbbed where Preston had pinned it. Her knees screamed from hitting the floor. But she stood, leaned against the booth, her prosthetic finally locked into place, and watched through the window as a stranger decided she mattered enough to fight for. Scarlett pushed past Dorothy, her heels clicking against the tile as she headed for the door. Preston followed, still wheezing, one hand pressed to his ribs. They burst into the parking lot like a storm of privilege and rage. Do you have any idea what you just did? Scarlett's voice climbed into registers that made dogs whine. That's assault. We could have you arrested. We could sue you for everything you have. Garrett's eyes flicked to her. Just once. Just long enough to make her voice falter. You done 2 words. Flat. Empty of emotion. Scarlett's mouth worked like a fish drowning in air. Damien was on his phone now, his voice loud and sharp. Dad, listen. Some psycho just attacked us at that dumpster diner on Harbor Street. He sicked his dog on Preston. We need... Step away from my dog. Garrett's voice cut through Damien's call like a blade through silk. Damien lowered the phone slightly. What? I said step away from my dog. All of you, now. Preston found his voice, though it came out thin and reedy. Your mutt attacked my shoe. I've got witnesses. You're going down for this old man. Witnesses? Garrett's mouth didn't quite smile. Like the 20 people inside who just watched you assault that young woman, those witnesses. Silence, sham, the kind that presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Dorothy had helped Grace to the door now. Grace stood there, one hand braced against the frame, her prosthetic leg aching in a way that meant she'd have bruises tomorrow that wouldn't heal for weeks. She looked at Garrett Hawk. He looked back. Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition, maybe. The kind that happens when one broken thing sees another and understands without words what it means to keep standing when the world wants you on your knees. You're dead, Damien said into his phone. Then to Garrett, you're dead. My father owns this town. He owns the police. He owns the judges. By tomorrow morning, you'll wish you'd kept walking. Garrett reached into his jacket pocket, slowly, deliberately giving Preston's hand time to stop reaching for whatever weapon he thought he was tough enough to use. Pulled out a business card, handed it to Grace. Not to Damien, not to Preston or Scarlett. To Grace. Their fingers touched for a second. His hand was steady, calloused, warm. The card read, Colonel Garrett Hawk, USMC, retired. Below that, a phone number, an address, nothing else. You kick my dog, Garrett said, still looking at Grace. You're going to leave now. You're going to get in your expensive car and drive away. And you're going to leave this young woman alone. Forever, Damien laughed. It was an ugly sound. Or what? You'll sick your mutt on us again. Titan's growl rolled through the parking lot like distant thunder. Or I file a complaint with the local police department about the assault I just witnessed. I provide testimony. I provide my contact information. And we let the courts decide what happens to 3 adults who attacked a disabled young woman in a public place. The courts. Scarlett's laugh was brittle as his breaking glass. My mother is Judge Montgomery. The police chief plays golf with Preston's dad every Sunday. Do you really think anyone cares about her? She pointed at Grace with one manicured finger. She's nobody. A cleaning lady with a fake leg who couldn't even make it through nursing school. She doesn't matter. The words hit Grace like a physical blow, because she'd heard them before, had heard them in 100 different ways over 2 years, from lawyers who'd dropped her case after one meeting, from police officers who'd stopped returning her calls, from landlords who'd found reasons to evict her, from employers who'd discovered she wasn't a good fit. Nobody. Doesn't matter. She'd almost started to believe it. Garrett's eyes went cold, not angry, just cold. The way ice is cold, the way death is cold. She matters to me. 4 words that hung in the air like a verdict. Grace felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd thought was dead, something that felt dangerously like hope. Damien's phone was still pressed to his ear. Grace could hear a man's voice on the other end now. Deep, controlled, angry in the way that powerful people are angry, cold, and calculating rather than hot and stupid. Put him on, the voice said. Damien's hand shook as he held out the phone to Garrett. My father wants to talk to you. Garrett didn't take the phone, didn't even look at it. I have nothing to say to your father. Tell him to have his lawyers call me if he wants a conversation. Otherwise, you're leaving. Now. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Damien lowered the phone, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. This isn't over. Yes, Garrett said quietly. It is. They left. Damien first trying to maintain some shred of dignity as he climbed into the silver Mercedes. Scarlett second, her heels clicking a furious rhythm across the asphalt. Preston last, still holding his ribs, shooting one more look at Titan before stumbling to the passenger side. The Mercedes roared to life, too loud, too aggressive, the sound of money trying to intimidate people who'd heard real violence and weren't impressed. Then they were gone. The parking lot exhaled. Grace's legs gave out. She would have fallen again if Garrett hadn't caught her. Guided her back inside the diner with one hand under her elbow, steady and sure. Titan followed his limp, more pronounced now, his breathing slightly labored. But his eyes were still alert, still tracking threats, still doing the job he'd been trained to do. Protect, serve, stand between the innocent and those who do them harm. Dorothy appeared with ice wrapped in a clean towel. Her hands were steadier now. Other people started moving, again started pretending they'd been somewhere else the whole time. Grace sat in the booth, the same booth where it had started, and pressed the ice to her scalp where Scarlett had yanked her hair. Her hand was already swelling where Preston had stepped on it. Her knee felt like someone had taken a hammer to it, but she was upright. She was breathing. And a stranger with a military dog had just told 3 people who'd made her life hell that she mattered. "Are you okay?" Garrett's voice was different now, softer, the edge gone. Grace looked at him, really looked. Saw the gray in his hair, the scar on his forehead, the way his right leg bore weight differently than his left, like maybe he had his own prosthetic hidden under his jeans. The way his eyes were sad in the way that people's eyes got when they'd seen too much and saved too little. Saw someone who understood what it meant to be broken and keep fighting anyway. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why did you help me?" Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Titan had settled beside the booth, his amber eyes still watching the door. His tail wagged once when Garrett's hand absently scratched between his ears. "6 months ago," Garrett said slowly, "I was in a village in Kandahar province. We were doing a supply run, basic stuff, and there was this kid, maybe 10 years old, being beaten by 3 Taliban fighters because he'd gone to the school we'd set up. They wanted to make an example of him." He looked down at his hands. "I had orders. Get the supplies and leave. Don't engage. Don't create an international incident. Just leave." His jaw tightened. "I didn't leave. I stopped them. Took the kid to the school. Made sure he was safe. Got written up for disobeying orders. Nearly cost me my rank." He looked up at Grace. "But I could live with that. What I couldn't live with was walking past that kid and doing nothing." He paused. "Some people see that as weakness. I see it as being human." Another pause. "You're not nobody, Grace. You're someone who deserved help. That's all the reason I need." Grace's eyes burned. She hadn't cried in 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since the night she'd realized her life was over before it really began. Not since she'd understood that people like Damien and Scarlett and Preston could destroy her and nobody would care. But now sitting in her aunt's diner with ice on her hand and a retired Marine who thought she mattered, the tears came. "They took everything," she whispered. "My leg, my scholarship, 3 bus, 2 apartments, my dignity, everything. And nobody stopped them. Nobody even tried." Garrett slid the business card across the table. It sat there between the salt shaker and the ketchup bottle like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. "I'm trying now." Grace picked up the card with her good hand. The paper was thick, expensive, real. "I'm on medical discharge," Garrett said. "Took some shrapnel in my shoulder 18 months ago. Doctor says I need another 6 months to recover fully. I've been going crazy with nothing to do." He smiled slightly. It made him look younger, less dangerous. "How do you feel about helping me stay busy?" Grace didn't understand. Her brain felt full of cotton and confusion and the fading edge of adrenaline. What do you mean?" Garrett leaned forward. "Those 3, they're not going to stop. People like that never do. Not unless someone makes them. So I'm going to make them." He paused. "But I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you to tell me everything. Every job you lost, every apartment, every threat, every time they made you feel like you didn't matter. I need all of it." Grace's hand tightened on the card. "They'll destroy you. They destroy everyone who tries to help me. They can try. You don't understand. Victor Caldwell controls half this county. Judge Montgomery has connections everywhere. Senator Ashworth owns the mayor. They're not just rich. They're connected. They're protected." Garrett's smile didn't waver. "So am I." Dorothy appeared with coffee. Her hands were steady now. She set 2 cups down and looked at Garrett for a long moment. "Mija," she said to Grace, but her eyes stayed on Garrett. "Maybe you should listen to him." Grace stared at her aunt. "Tia, I've watched those monsters hurt you for 2 years. 2 years I've done nothing because I was afraid. Afraid they'd take my diner. Afraid they'd hurt my family." Dorothy's voice hardened. "But you are my family, and I'm done being afraid." She looked at Garrett. "What do you need from us?" "Everything you've got. Documentation, witnesses, recordings if you have them. Anything that proves what they've been doing." Dorothy nodded slowly. "I have security footage from the diner. Going back 2 years, I never deleted it because..." She trailed off. Because you knew someday someone would care enough to look, Garrett finished. Dorothy nodded again. Grace stared at the card in her hand, at this impossible lifeline, at this stranger who'd decided her life was worth fighting for. Why should I trust you, she asked. Everyone else who tried to help me got crushed. My lawyer dropped my case after one meeting with Caldwell's legal team. The cop who took my initial report about the accident got transferred to Montana. The hospital administrator who tried to fight my first firing got fired himself. Everyone who touches this gets destroyed. Garrett didn't look away. I've been shot at by people who wanted to kill me. I've jumped out of airplanes in the dark. I've swum through waters where one mistake means drowning. I've done all of that and worse because I believe some things are worth the risk. He paused. You're worth the risk, Grace. Titan made a soft sound, almost like agreement. Grace looked at her aunt, at the man who'd appeared like something out of a story that didn't happen to people like her, at the dog who'd threatened 3 bullies with nothing but a growl. She thought about 2 years of silence, 2 years of being pushed and broken and told she didn't matter. She thought about Scarlett's hand in her hair, Preston's boot on her hand, Damien's smug smile as he threatened her aunt's livelihood. She thought about every person who'd looked away, every institution that had failed her, every time she'd been told to just accept it, just move on, just be grateful she was still alive. And she thought about Garrett Hawk asking her to fight back. Okay, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Okay, I'll help you. Wished Garrett's face didn't change, but something in his eyes warmed. Good, we'll start tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Put ice on that hand. Take some ibuprofen. Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow I have work, night shift at the hospital. Call in sick. I can't afford... Grace, Garrett's voice was gentle but firm. What you can't afford is to let this continue one day. Give me one day. If I can't make progress, if I can't show you that fighting back is possible, then you walk away. Go back to your life. I won't push. But give me one day. She wanted to say no, wanted to protect herself from the hope that was starting to bloom in her chest like something dangerous. Hope was what got you killed. Hope was what made the fall hurt worse. But she was so tired of falling alone. One day, she agreed. Garrett stood. Titan rose with him, a shadow made of loyalty and teeth. I'll pick you up at 9 a.m., bring everything you have, documents, photos, anything. He paused at the door, turned back. Grace, those 3 people who hurt you tonight, they think they're untouchable. They think their money and their names make them invincible. His smile was sharp as a blade. They're wrong, and tomorrow we start proving it. Then he was gone, the door chiming softly behind him, Titan's nails clicking on the tile until they faded into the night. Dorothy sat down across from Grace, took her niece's swollen hand gently in her own. Do you trust him? She asked. Grace looked at the card, at the phone number, at the promise of someone who cared. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm out of other options. What she didn't say was that for the first time in 2 years, someone had stood up for her. Someone had looked at Damien Caldwell and Scarlett Montgomery and Preston Ashworth and told them no. Someone had made her matter. And that was worth one day of hope, even if that hope destroyed her. Chapter 2, The Evidence. That night, Grace sat in her studio apartment, the 3rd one in 2 years, the walls thin enough to hear her neighbors fighting the heat that worked maybe half the time and spread everything out on her kitchen table. The medical records from the accident, the police report that had disappeared from official databases, but that she'd kept a copy of just in case. The emails from lawyers who'd taken her case, then dropped it within 48 hours. The termination notices from 3 different jobs, each one citing vague performance issues that had never existed before she tried to press charges. The eviction notices from 2 different apartments, both claiming lease violations she'd never committed. The screenshots of Scarlett's social media posts before they'd been taken down. Posts with Grace's photo doctored to make her look pathetic. Weak broken with captions like, attention seeker can't handle consequences, and some people will do anything for a payout. 2 years of her life destroyed, documented in paper and pixels. She'd never put it all together before, never wanted to see the full scope of what they'd done to her. But now, with Garrett Hawk's business card sitting beside her laptop, she forced herself to look. The accident report was first. She made herself read it again. October 15th, 2022, 11:47 p.m. Hit and run. Witness statements indicate driver was male, early 20s, driving a silver BMW M5. Victim Grace Sullivan suffered severe trauma to left leg, resulting in below-knee amputation. Driver fled the scene. Witnesses reported smell of alcohol and erratic driving prior to impact. Below that, in handwritten notes from Officer Thomas Burke, witness Hannah Williams, provided license plate number 7SKD439, ran plates. Vehicle registered to Damian Caldwell, son of developer Victor Caldwell Sr. Contacted Caldwell residence for statement, and then nothing. The next report filed 3 days later by a different officer. No witnesses came forward. Investigation ongoing. No suspects at this time. Officer Burke had been transferred to Montana 2 weeks later. Hannah Williams, the witness, had moved out of state within a month. The case went cold. Grace had spent 6 months in the hospital, lost her leg, lost her full scholarship to the nursing program at UC San Diego, lost everything. And Damian Caldwell had walked away. She pulled up her laptop and started searching, not for evidence. She had that. She searched for Garrett Hawk, Navy SEAL, decorated, 3 tours, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, part of a K-9 unit that had saved 19 soldiers during an ambush in Kandahar province. Silver Star, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor device. The articles called him a hero. The photo showed a younger version of the man she'd met tonight. Same serious eyes, same quiet intensity. In one photo, he stood with Titan, younger than maybe 4 years old, after receiving a commendation for rescuing a unit pinned down by enemy fire. The article said Garrett had run through open ground under fire with Titan to provide covering positions for an evacuation. Said he'd been shot twice and kept fighting until every soldier was safe. Said he'd never considered not going. Grace closed the laptop. Heroes existed in war zones and newspaper articles. They didn't walk into diners and care about cleaning ladies with prosthetic legs. Except one had. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Had learned 2 years ago that unknown numbers usually meant more threats, more reminders that she should stay quiet, should accept her place, should be grateful they'd let her live at all. But something made her look. A text message. "This is Garrett. Just checking that you got home safe. See you at 9 a.m. Grace stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Home safe, thank you for tonight." The response came immediately. "You don't need to thank me. See you tomorrow." Grace set down her phone and looked at the evidence spread across her table. 2 years of systematic destruction. 2 years of being told she didn't matter. Tomorrow she was going to fight back. Tomorrow she was going to matter. She just hoped Garrett Hawk knew what he was getting into, because the Caldwell network had crushed everyone else who tried to help her, and she couldn't bear to watch them crush him too. At exactly 9 a.m., a knock sounded on Grace's door. She'd been ready since 7, unable to sleep, running through every possible way this could go wrong. She'd packed everything into a canvas messenger bag, documents, flash drives with saved emails, printouts of social media harassment, everything. She opened the door. Garrett stood there in civilian clothes, jeans, a plain gray shirt, a jacket that probably hid more than it showed. Titan sat beside him, calm and alert, his K-9 vest catching the morning light. "Ready?" Garrett asked. Grace shouldered her bag. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk without being overheard. Somewhere safe." He glanced down the hallway. "Is there another exit from this building?" "Why?" "Because there's a silver Mercedes parked across the street. Same model as last night. Been sitting there for 20 minutes with 2 people inside watching your door." Grace's blood went cold. "Damian?" "Probably, which means they know I helped you last night, which means they're watching to see what we do next." Garrett's expression didn't change. "So we're going to give them something to watch." He led her down the back stairs, through the building's service entrance, into an alley where a dark blue Ford F-150 waited. Titan jumped into the back seat. Grace climbed into the passenger side, her prosthetic catching on the running board before she managed to haul herself up. Garrett drove calmly, professionally, checking his mirrors every few seconds. "They're following us," he said after 3 blocks. Grace twisted to look. The silver Mercedes was 2 cars back. "What do we do?" Garrett smiled slightly. "We let them follow, for now." He drove for 20 minutes, heading north toward the coast. The Mercedes stayed with them, not even trying to hide. Grace's hands twisted in her lap, her heart hammering against her ribs. "They're going to run us off the road," she said. "They're going to." "Grace." Garrett's voice was steady. "Look at me." She did. "I've driven through Kandahar with insurgents shooting at me. I've navigated mountain roads in the dark and with no lights and hostiles on every side. I've done convoy security through some of the most dangerous territory on Earth." He glanced in the rearview mirror. 2 rich kids in a Mercedes don't scare me." Grace tried to breathe, tried to believe him. 10 minutes later, Garrett pulled into a parking lot. Not just any parking lot, the California Highway Patrol Station. The Mercedes slowed, hesitated, then drove past Damien's face visible through the tinted window twisted with rage. Garrett parked and turned off the engine. Like I said, they don't scare me. Inside the station, a man in a CHP uniform looked up from his desk and broke into a grin. Garrett Hawk, you son of a gun. Jackson, Garrett shook his hand. Thanks for making time. For you always. Jackson Reeves's eyes moved to Grace. Grace Sullivan, meet Jackson Reeves. We went through BUD/S together. He's the investigator I mentioned last night. Jackson's expression sobered. Miss Sullivan, I've been looking into your case, unofficially because officially it's closed. But between you and me, it stinks. He pulled out a file. Grace recognized it, her accident report. But this version was thicker, had more pages. The original investigating officer, Thomas Burke, he kept his own notes. Copies of everything before it disappeared. He sent them to me before he got transferred. Jackson spread the papers across his desk. License plate number matching Damien Caldwell's BMW. Witness statement from Hannah Williams describing Caldwell leaving Murphy's bar drunk 30 minutes before the accident. Security footage from said bar showing Caldwell downing 6 shots of tequila between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Paint transfer from Grace's clothing, matching the silver metallic paint used on BMW M5 models from 2020 to 2022. Blood alcohol estimate based on bar footage and timeline .1/8, more than twice the legal limit. Photographs of the accident scene showing skid marks consistent with high-speed impact and evasive maneuvers. Grace stared at the evidence. This should have been enough to arrest him, to charge him with vehicular assault, with leaving the scene. Should have been, Jackson said quietly. Would have been, except 48 hours after the accident, every piece of physical evidence disappeared from the evidence locker. He pulled out another document. The security footage from Murphy's bar got corrupted. Hannah Williams got visited by some very expensive lawyers who convinced her she was mistaken about what she saw. And Officer Burke got transferred to Montana. Who has that kind of power? Grace whispered. Jackson and Garrett exchanged a look. We're about to find out, Garrett said. Jackson spread another document across the desk. Grace recognized the county seal at the top. This is the evidence log from the night of your accident. Everything that was collected. Blood samples from the scene, paint chips, fabric fibers, your personal belongings. He tapped a series of entries. And this is the log from 72 hours later. Empty. Every single item marked is transferred to State Lab for analysis. He pulled out another page. Except the State Lab has no record of receiving anything. Someone destroyed it, Grace said. Someone with access to the evidence room. Someone with authority to sign transfer orders. Jackson pulled out another page. The signature on the transfer order belongs to Captain Richard Morrison. He retired 2 weeks after your accident, moved to the Cayman Islands, bought a $3.2 million beachfront property. He paused. Cash. Garrett leaned forward. On a cop's pension. Exactly. Jackson's jaw tightened. I ran Morrison's financials, found a wire transfer from an offshore account registered to Caldwell Industries. $2.8 million, dated 3 days after your accident. The room went silent. Grace's hands were shaking so badly she had to press them flat against her thighs. They paid him, she said. They paid a police captain to destroy evidence of Damien almost killing me. Not almost, Jackson said quietly. According to the paramedic reports, you died twice in the ambulance and your heart stopped. They brought you back both times. It's in the medical records. He slid the file toward her. Damien Caldwell didn't just hurt you, Grace. He killed you, and his father paid to make sure no one ever knew. The words hit Grace like a physical blow. She'd known it was bad. Known Damien had run her down and left her to bleed out on the pavement while he drove home to his mansion in his expensive life. But hearing it said out loud, hearing that she'd actually died, that her heart had stopped while Damien was probably already washing the blood off his BMW. I need air, she whispered. Garrett stood immediately. Jackson, give us a minute. He guided Grace outside. Titan followed close. The morning sun was too bright. The world was too normal. People were driving past, getting coffee, living their lives like Grace hadn't just learned she'd been murdered and bought back from death with offshore money. Breathe, Garrett said. His hand was steady on her shoulder. In through your mouth, out through your mouth. Grace tried, failed, tried again. I died, she said. Her voice sounded far away. He killed me, and they paid to hide it. You survived. Garrett's voice was granite. They killed you, and you survived. And now we're going to make them pay for it. He paused. But I need you here, Grace. I need you focused. Can you do that? She looked at him, at this man who'd known her for less than 24 hours and was already fighting harder for her than anyone ever had. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really, you said you couldn't walk past someone who needed help. But this isn't walking past. This is running toward. This is dangerous. These people have already killed once to protect Damien. They'll do it again." Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Titan sat between them, watching his handler's face. 3 years ago, Garrett finally said, "I lost someone on my team. Young kid, 21 years old, fresh out of training, eager, good." His voice was distant. "He saw an IED, called it out. And while we were evacuating, a secondary device went off, killed him instantly." His jaw worked. Turned out the local contractor who placed those IEDs was being protected by a corrupt Afghan official we'd been working with. This official was taking bribes, looking the other way, letting people die because it was profitable. Garrett's eyes were hard. "We reported it up the chain. Nothing happened. Too politically sensitive. Too complicated. So this kid died and the people responsible walked away." He looked at Grace. "I swore after that, no more looking away, no more too complicated. If I see someone being crushed by people who think they're untouchable, I don't care how powerful they are. I stop them." His voice dropped. "You died on that pavement, Grace. Your heart stopped. And Damien Caldwell went home and slept in his comfortable bed while his father made it disappear." He paused. "That ends now." Grace felt something shift in her chest, something that felt like armor sliding into place. "Okay," she said, "what do we do?" They went back inside. Jackson had more documents waiting. "Morrison's not the only one on Caldwell's payroll. I found 3 other officers who received payments in the last 2 years. All of them worked cases involving Damian Preston and Scarlett. All of them closed those cases with no charges filed." He pulled out a list. Grace recognized some of the names. Girls from her high school, a guy she'd known from community college. All of them had complained about harassment. All of them had been ignored. "There are 9 other victims," Jackson said. 9 people who tried to report abuse from these 3 and got nowhere. Some were assaulted. Some were sexually harassed. Some were threatened. All of them were silenced." "Why didn't they go to the media?" Grace asked. "Why didn't they make noise?" Jackson's expression darkened. "Because 3 of them tried. Had stories killed by editors who suddenly discovered credibility issues. 2 got sued for defamation by lawyers who buried them in legal fees. 1 had her family's business audited by the IRS until they were bankrupted." Garrett leaned against the desk. "This isn't just 3 rich kids being cruel. This is a system, an infrastructure built to protect them." "Built by their parents," Jackson confirmed. "Victor Caldwell, Judge Catherine Montgomery, Senator Ashworth. They've spent 20 years creating a network of people who owe them favors. Judges, cops, reporters, business owners. Anyone who could expose their kids gets crushed." Grace felt sick. "How do we fight that? They own everything." "Not everything." Garrett pulled out his phone, made a call. "Captain Warren, it's Hawk. I need a favor. Big one." He stepped away, speaking quietly. Grace looked at Jackson. "Does he always do this?" she asked. "Walk into impossible situations and decide to fix them?" Jackson smiled slightly. "In BUD/S, there was an exercise. We had to swim 5 miles in open ocean. Cold water. Full gear. Most people barely made it. Garrett did his 5 miles, then swam back to help 3 guys who were struggling. Nearly drowned himself bringing them in." He leaned back in his chair. "The instructors told him he was stupid, that he'd risked his life for people who needed to learn to save themselves. You know what he said?" Grace shook her head. "He said if someone's drowning and you can help, you help. Everything else is just noise." Garrett came back, his expression satisfied. "Captain Warren is making some calls. She knows people at the FBI, people who don't owe favors to county developers." "The FBI," Grace's stomach dropped. "Garrett, I can't afford—" "You're not affording anything. This is a federal corruption case. Wire fraud at minimum. Probably racketeering. The FBI doesn't charge victims for investigating crimes." Jackson nodded. "And I'm filing an official complaint with the state attorney general demanding the accident investigation be reopened. With Morrison's financial records and the missing evidence, they'll have to act." "They'll bury it," Grace said, "like they buried everything else." "They'll try." Garrett's smile was sharp. "But here's the thing about burying evidence in the digital age. It's really hard to make things disappear when multiple copies exist in multiple jurisdictions." He counted on his fingers. "Jackson has copies. I have copies. Captain Warren has copies. And by end of business today, the FBI will have copies. Grace's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her look. The text made her blood freeze. You made a mistake trusting that Navy boy. He can't protect you. No one can. Drop this now or everyone you love gets hurt. Starting with your aunt. Below the text was a photo. Dorothy leaving her house that morning. Someone had been watching her, following her. Grace's hands started shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Garrett took it from her, read the message. His expression went cold. Jackson, I need you to send a unit to this address right now. He rattled off Dorothy's home address. Possible threat to the occupant. Armed response. While Jackson made the call, Garrett dialed another number. Dorothy Martinez, this is Garrett Hawk. We met last night. I need you to listen very carefully. Lock your doors right now. Don't open them for anyone except uniformed police officers. Yes, I'll explain when they get there. Do it now. He hung up, looked at Grace. They're trying to scare you into backing down. That's all this is, intimidation. It's working. Grace's voice shook. They're threatening my aunt, the only family I have left. If something happens to her because of me, nothing is going to happen to her. I've got people watching her house within 5 minutes. She'll be safe. For how long a day a week, they'll wait until you leave, until I'm alone again. And then, she couldn't finish. Titan pushed his head against her hand. The pressure was gentle, insistent. She looked down at those amber eyes. Dogs know when someone's afraid, Garrett said quietly. Titan's been trained to provide comfort in high-stress situations. He's telling you you're safe. I'm not safe. None of us are safe. This was a mistake. I should never have... Her phone rang. Dorothy, Emma answered with shaking hands. Tia, Mija, there are police cars outside my house. What's happening? Someone threatened you because of me. I'm so sorry. I never meant... Emma, stop. Breathe. Dorothy's voice was firm. Tell me what's happening. Through tears, Grace explained the evidence, the offshore accounts, the 9 other victims, the text message. Dorothy was silent for a long moment. Then she said, do you remember what I told you when you were 12 and those girls were bullying you at school? Grace remembered. You told me bullies have power only if you give it to them. You told me to stand up. This is different, Tia. These aren't school bullies. These are people who can destroy lives. They already destroyed your life, Mija. They took your leg, your career, your dignity. What else can they take? Dorothy's voice strengthened. You know what they can't take? Your courage, your voice, your refusal to stay silent. Those things, those are yours. And if standing up means I get threatened, then I get threatened. She paused. I've lived 60 years. I've survived worse than rich kids with too much money. I'm not afraid of them, but I am afraid of losing you again. What do you mean? I watched you disappear for 2 years. Watched you become smaller and quieter and more afraid every day. I'm not watching that anymore. Dorothy's voice was fierce. Fight back, Mija. Fight back and don't stop. I'll be fine. I have police outside my house and a cast iron skillet inside it. Anyone tries to hurt me will regret it. Despite everything, Grace almost smiled. After she hung up, Garrett said, your aunt's tougher than she looks. She raised 3 kids alone after my uncle died. Kept her business running through 2 recessions. Raised me after my parents died in a car crash when I was 8. Tough doesn't cover it. Good. Garrett's smile was grim. Because we're about to make this a lot worse before it gets better. Jackson handed Garrett a folder across the desk. It was thick, bulging with documents that represented more than just paper. They represented lives destroyed, futures stolen, justice denied. This is everything I have on the other victims, Jackson said. Names, contact information, incident reports. If even 3 of them are willing to testify, we can build a case that even the Caldwell network can't bury. Grace took the folder, flipped through it with trembling fingers. She recognized 2 names immediately. Rebecca Morgan. They'd gone to high school together. Rebecca had been bright, ambitious, planning to study law at Stanford. Now, according to the notes, she worked at a call center making $11 an hour. They won't testify, Grace said quietly. I know some of these people. They're terrified. The Caldwell network destroyed them. They won't risk it again. Then we convince them, Garrett said. How? What can we offer them that's worth risking everything? Garrett looked at her steadily. Justice and the knowledge that they're not alone anymore. Grace wanted to argue, wanted to explain that justice was a fairy tale and being alone was safer than trusting people who couldn't protect you. But before she could speak, Jackson's computer pinged. He looked at the screen and swore under his breath. What? Garrett moved behind him. Security footage just went live online from the diner last night. Grace's stomach dropped. What footage? Jackson turned the monitor. The video was grainy but clear enough. It showed Garrett confronting Damian Preston and Scarlett in the parking lot. Showed him grabbing Damian's ankle. Showed him elbowing Preston. Showed Titan with his teeth bared. But it had been edited. The part where Grace was on the floor inside hair being pulled, hand being stepped on, that was gone. It started with Garrett attacking Damian. Made it look like Garrett was the aggressor. Made Titan look vicious rather than protective. The caption read, "Violent veteran attacks innocent diners with dangerous dog. Navy should investigate this unstable individual." It already had 75,000 views. "They're framing you," Grace whispered. Garrett's expression didn't change. Expected. Expected. They just made you look like a criminal to 75,000 people. They made themselves look scared to anyone paying attention. They're trying to discredit me before I can hurt them. That means we're getting close to something they want to hide. His phone rang. He looked at the number and his jaw tightened slightly. Captain Warren. He stepped away again. Grace watched his face change, watched his shoulders stiffen. When he came back, his eyes were hard. "What?" she asked. "The Navy is opening an investigation based on that video. They want me to return to base for questioning." Jackson swore again. "They can't do that. It's clearly edited." "Doesn't matter. An investigation was requested by Senator Ashworth's office. The Navy has to respond. Protocol." Garrett's hands flexed at his sides. "I have 48 hours before I have to report. After that, I'll be on base pending review. Could take weeks, maybe months." "They're taking you away from me," Grace said. The betrayal felt physical, like a hand squeezing her heart. "They're making sure I'm alone again." "You're not alone. Jackson's still here. The FBI is still investigating, and I've got 48 hours to make as much progress as possible." 48 hours against 20 years of infrastructure. That's impossible. Garrett's smile was sharp. "I've done impossible before." He pulled out his phone, started typing rapidly. "Jackson, I need contact information for every victim on that list. Grace, I need you to start making calls. Anyone who was harassed by these three, anyone who filed a report, anyone who knows anything." "They won't talk to me," Grace said. "I'm one of them, a victim. Why would they trust me?" Garrett looked up from his phone. "Because you're standing up. Because for the first time in 2 years, someone's fighting back. That matters. That inspires people." Grace wanted to believe him, wanted to think her courage could be contagious. But she knew these people, knew their fear, knew how the Caldwell network had crushed them. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another text. "Tick-tock, Grace. 48 hours until your hero disappears. Then it's just you and us, like old times." Below it, another photo. This one of Grace herself, taken through her apartment window that morning. Someone had been watching her, photographing her. "They're following me too," she said. Garrett took the phone, studied the photo. His expression went from cold to arctic. "Jackson, can you trace this number?" "Already on it." Jackson's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Burner phone, purchased yesterday afternoon at the Quick Stop on Harbor Boulevard." He stopped, pulled up another screen. "Huh. Okay, but the store is in the same plaza as Caldwell Industries' main office, and it was purchased on a Caldwell Industries corporate credit card." Garrett smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "They just made a mistake." "How is that a mistake?" Grace asked. "They're taunting us, showing us they can get to me whenever they want. They're showing us they're sloppy. Scared people make mistakes, using a corporate card to buy a burner phone. That's traceable. That's evidence." He handed the phone back. "Forward that message to Jackson and to me. We're building a harassment case. Every threat, every text, every photo, it all goes in the file." Grace's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She forwarded the messages, then set the phone down before she dropped it. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not strong enough. I'm not brave like you. I'm just a cleaning lady with a prosthetic leg who can barely afford rent. I'm nobody." Garrett crouched down until he was at eye level with her. "You know what you are, Grace? You're a woman who died twice and came back fighting. You're someone who survived 2 years of systematic torture and didn't break. You're a person who works night shifts to pay medical bills and still shows up every day." His voice was fierce. "You're not nobody. You're exactly the kind of person who changes the world. Because you've got nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. I have my aunt. I could lose her. Your aunt just told you to fight. Honor that Honor her courage by finding your own. Grace looked at Titan. The dog was watching her with those steady amber eyes, like he believed in her, like he knew she could do this. Okay, she said. Her voice was barely audible. Okay, what's first? Garrett pulled out the victim list. First, we call Hannah Williams, the witness from your accident who disappeared. Jackson found her in Oregon. She's a teacher now, married, 2 kids, safe from the Caldwell network. Maybe safe enough to finally tell the truth. He handed Grace his phone with a number already dialed. You're the one who calls her, not me, not Jackson. You, victim to victim, survivor to survivor. You tell her what we're doing. You tell her she has a chance to make this right. And you ask her to help. Grace took the phone. It rang 3 times before a woman answered. Hello. Hannah Williams, my name is Grace Sullivan. 2 years ago, you witnessed the accident that took my leg. You told the police it was Damian Caldwell driving drunk. Then you disappeared. Grace's voice steadied as she spoke. I'm calling because I'm fighting back, and I need your help. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Hannah Williams started to cry. I've been waiting 2 years for this call, she said. They told me you'd never call. They told me you'd given up. Who told you that? Caldwell's lawyers. They came to my house 6 months after the accident. Said you'd taken a settlement, $200,000 to sign an NDA and never speak about it again. They said you were done fighting. Grace's throat tightened. I never got offered any settlement. I never signed anything. Hannah went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. Those bastards lied to me. For 2 years, I thought you'd moved on. I thought I was the only one still carrying this. You're not alone anymore, Grace said. I'm building a case, with evidence, with witnesses. I need you to tell me everything you saw that night, everything you told the police before they made you disappear. If I do this, they'll come after me again. My husband, my kids, they'll destroy us. Garrett leaned close to the phone. Mrs. Williams, this is Garrett Hawk. I'm a retired Navy SEAL working with Grace. I give you my word, your family will be protected. I have contacts at the FBI. They're already investigating the corruption network. Your testimony would be protected under federal witness protocols. A Navy SEAL. Hannah's voice shifted with something like hope. You're serious. The FBI is actually investigating. As of 2 hours ago, yes, they're looking into wire fraud evidence, tampering, and racketeering. Your testimony about what you saw and how you were silenced would be crucial. Hannah was quiet for so long Grace thought she'd hung up. Then she said, I saw Damian Caldwell stumble out of Murphy's bar at 11:30 that night. He could barely walk. His friends Preston and some blonde girl poured him into his BMW Silver M5. License plate 7SKD439. I memorized it because I knew he was going to kill someone. Grace closed her eyes listening. 15 minutes later, I was at the intersection of Harbor and 5th. Red light. I saw him run it. Saw him hit you. I heard the impact. I saw your body. Hannah's voice broke. I saw you lying there, man. So much blood. I called 911. I stayed until the ambulance came. I told the police everything. What happened after that? Officer Burke took my statement. He was good, professional. He told me they'd need me to testify. I said I would. Hannah paused. Then 2 days later, these lawyers showed up at my house. Expensive suits, dead eyes. They said I was mistaken. That I couldn't have seen what I thought I saw. That Damian Caldwell was out of town that night and they had proof. But you knew what you saw. I knew, so they changed tactics. Showed me photos of my daughter leaving school, my husband leaving work. They never said the words. Never made an explicit threat. They just showed me those photos and said it would be a shame if something happened to people I loved because I insisted on remembering things incorrectly. Garrett's jaw tightened. Did you report the threats? To who? The police who were already making evidence disappear. I was terrified. So I lied. I told the new investigator I was wrong, that I didn't actually see the driver clearly, that it was dark and I was confused. Hannah's voice dropped to a whisper. Then they offered me $50,000 to move out of state, to start over somewhere the Caldwell network couldn't reach me. I took it. I took the money and I ran, and I've hated myself for 2 years. You survived, Grace said. That's not something to hate yourself for. I abandoned you, left you to face them alone while I took their blood money and built a safe life in Oregon. How is that not something to hate? Grace thought about 2 years of silence, 2 years of being told she didn't matter, 2 years of believing she deserved what happened because she'd been too weak to fight back. Because you're fighting back now, Grace said. That's what matters. Will you testify? Hannah took a shaky breath. Yes, God help me, yes. Send me whatever you need me to sign. I'll testify. I'll tell the truth this time. After Hannah hung up, Grace sat in silence. Her hands were shaking, but her voice had been steady. She'd asked for help, and someone had said yes. Garrett was watching her with something like pride. That was good, really good. You got her to commit. She shouldn't have to commit to telling the truth. The truth should just matter. In a perfect world, yes. In this world, we have to fight for it. He pulled out the victim list again. Who's next? Over the next 4 hours, Grace made 13 more calls. Some people hung up as soon as she identified herself. Some listened and said no. Some cried and said they wanted to help but couldn't. But 4 said yes. Rebecca Morgan, who'd been sexually assaulted by Preston Ashworth at a college party and watched the charges disappear when her university received a generous donation from the Ashworth Foundation. William Hayes, who'd reported Damian Caldwell for assault and had been called a liar by the police because a decorated war veteran couldn't possibly be attacked by a college kid. Sarah Mitchell, who'd been harassed by Scarlett Montgomery throughout high school and had every college application mysteriously rejected until she finally gave up and took a job at Target. And Thomas Burke himself. Officer Burke, who'd been transferred to Montana and had spent 2 years afraid to speak. He'd watched the news coverage of the edited video, seen Garrett being framed, and decided he was done being silent. 4 more voices willing to stand up. 4 more witnesses to the systematic cruelty. Jackson was documenting everything, recording the calls with permission, building a file that was starting to look like something real. Grace's phone buzzed. Dorothy. Mija, there's a man here. Says he's from the county health department. He wants to inspect the diner. Says there have been complaints. Grace's stomach dropped. Don't let him in. Call a lawyer first. I don't have a lawyer. I can't afford. Garrett took the phone. Mrs. Martinez, this is Garrett. Do not let that inspector inside without a warrant. Tell him you have legal representation and all communications need to go through your attorney. I'm sending someone to you right now. He hung up and made another call. Captain Warren, I need another favor. Know any lawyers who work pro bono for harassment cases? While he talked, Jackson pulled up the county health department database. There's no inspections scheduled for Dorothy's diner. No complaints on file. This is harassment disguised as official business. Grace felt the familiar weight of helplessness settling over her. They're going after my aunt again, punishing her for helping me. They're panicking, Garrett corrected. We've got 4 witnesses in 4 hours. They're trying to slow us down, distract us. It means we're winning. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like everyone I love is being targeted. Titan pushed against her leg again. She buried her fingers in his fur, trying to ground herself. Garrett finished his call. Captain Warren knows a civilian lawyer, former JAG officer. He's calling your aunt now. He'll handle the inspector. How much will that cost? Nothing. He owes Captain Warren a favor and he hates corrupt officials. Grace wanted to ask how many favors Garrett had, how deep his network ran, how long he could sustain this before he ran out of people who owed him. But before she could speak, the door to the CHP station opened. A woman walked in, mid-30s, professional clothes, nervous eyes. She looked around the station like she was expecting to be arrested. I'm looking for Grace Sullivan, she said. Grace stood slowly. I'm Grace. The woman's eyes filled with tears. My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm number 5 on the victim list. I didn't wait for you to call. I came myself. Jackson pulled up the list. Jennifer Cole, assaulted by Damian Caldwell 3 years ago, reported it, had her career as a social worker destroyed when Caldwell's lawyers convinced her employer she was mentally unstable. How did you know we were here? Garrett asked. I didn't. I went to Grace's apartment, saw the BMW watching it, realized something was happening. So I followed them when they followed you here. Jennifer's hands twisted together. I've been too scared to do anything for 3 years. But this morning I woke up and I couldn't be scared anymore. I just couldn't. So I came. Grace crossed the room, took Jennifer's hands. They were cold and shaking. You're not alone, Grace said. Not anymore. Jennifer broke down, sobbing. Grace held her, 2 survivors holding each other up in a police station while Garrett and Jackson documented everything and Titan kept watch. And somewhere across town, the Caldwell network was learning that silence could be broken. Chapter 4, The Trap. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had 7 witnesses. 7 people willing to testify about assault, harassment, evidence tampering, and systematic abuse. 7 people who'd been silenced for years finally finding their voices. Jackson had compiled everything into a file 3 inches thick. Testimony, financial records, witness statements, photos, video evidence. "This is enough for a grand jury," he said. "More than enough. The FBI, I can't ignore this." Garrett checked his watch. 36 hours left before I have to report to base. We need to move faster." "Faster," Grace asked. "We have witnesses. We have evidence." "What else is there?" Garrett looked at her seriously. "We need Victor Caldwell himself on record, threatening us, offering bribes, doing anything that proves he's actively involved in the corruption." "How do we do that?" "We get him to meet us. We get him to talk. We record everything." Jackson leaned back in his chair. "That's dangerous, Garrett. Victor's not small time. He's not going to slip up easily. If he feels cornered, he won't just threaten. He'll act. Let him act. Every move he makes now is evidence." Garrett pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call Victor Caldwell's office. Request a meeting. Tell him I have information about his son that needs to be discussed privately. He'll never meet with you. He will if he thinks I'm offering to sell him the evidence. If he thinks I can be bought." Grace's blood went cold. "You're going to pretend to be corrupt. Pretend you'll take a bribe. I'm going to give him enough rope to hang himself, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Grace looked at this man who'd appeared in her life less than 48 hours ago and had already changed everything. This stranger who decided she mattered. "Yes," she said, "I trust you." Woo. Garrett made the call, put it on speaker. A receptionist answered. Professional, cold. "Caldwell Industries." "I need to speak with Victor Caldwell. It's regarding his son, Damien, and some evidence that's come into my possession." "Mr. Caldwell doesn't take unsolicited calls. If you have information relevant to, tell him it's about the incident at Dorothy's Diner 2 nights ago. Tell him I'm the Navy SEAL who interfered. Tell him I have security footage that hasn't been edited. And tell him I'm willing to discuss terms." There was a pause. "Hold, please." 2 minutes of elevator music. Then a man's voice, deep, authoritative, used to being obeyed. "This is Victor Caldwell. To whom am I speaking?" "Garrett Hawk, Colonel retired, Navy SEAL Team 6. "Ah, the man who assaulted my son 2 nights ago. I'm currently reviewing security footage that shows—" "I have the original footage, Mr. Caldwell, unedited. Shows your son and his friends attacking a disabled young woman. Shows them threatening witnesses. Shows everything." Garrett paused. "I thought you might want to see it before I decide what to do with it." The silence stretched. Grace could hear Victor Caldwell breathing. "What exactly are you proposing, Colonel Hawk?" "A meeting, you and me, private. I show you what I have. You make me an offer. We see if we can reach an understanding." "You're trying to extort me." "I'm trying to resolve a situation before it becomes a media circus. Your son made a mistake. Mistakes can be expensive. I'm just trying to figure out how expensive this one needs to be." Another pause. Grace could almost hear Victor's mind working, calculating, deciding if Garrett was legitimate or a trap. "How much are we discussing?" Garrett smiled coldly. "Enough to make me forget what I saw. Enough to make the footage disappear. Enough to compensate me for the career damage I'm about to suffer from that edited video your son posted." He paused. "I'm thinking 6 figures. Low 6 figures. I'm not greedy." Victor laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You want money to protect my son from the consequences of defending himself against a violent veteran with a dangerous dog. I want money to protect your son from video evidence of him assaulting a disabled woman. But if you'd rather I send this footage to every news station in the county, we can do that instead." The laughter stopped. "Where and when?" "Marina Park. Tonight, 7 p.m. Come alone. Bring cash or a cashier's check. I'll bring the footage. We make the exchange. Everyone walks away happy." "If you're recording this call—" "I'm not stupid, Mr. Caldwell. I know how this works. No recordings, no witnesses, just you, me, and a business transaction. Unless you'd rather I take this to the authorities. I'm sure they'd love to investigate the son of a county developer for assault and battery." Victor's voice went hard. 7 p.m. Marina Park. Come alone, Colonel. If I see police, if I see if I see anyone but you, this conversation never happened, and you'll find yourself facing charges for attempted extortion." "Understood. See you at 7. Garrett hung up. Grace stared at him. Are you insane? You just threatened to extort one of the most powerful men in the county. He's going to show up with lawyers and security, and he's going to show up with bench and desperation. Because I offered him what he's been buying for 20 years. Silence. Garrett looked at Jackson. How fast can we get surveillance equipment, body camera, audio recorder, something that'll hold up in court? I can have it here in 2 hours. Do it. Jackson was already typing. But Garrett, if Victor realizes you're recording, he won't just walk away. He won't realize. He thinks I'm just another person he can buy, another cog in his corruption machine. He spent 2 decades making problems disappear with money. He thinks I'm just another problem. What if he doesn't bring money? Grace asked. What if he brings something worse? Then Titan and I will handle it. We've handled worse. Grace wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was too dangerous. But she looked at the witness statements on Jackson's desk, at Jennifer Cole still sitting quietly in the corner, finally brave enough to stand up, at the evidence that was building into something real. I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. You just said we need evidence. I'm evidence. I'm the victim. If Victor says anything about me, anything about buying my silence or covering up what his son did, that's recorded too. That's more ammunition. Garrett shook his head. Too dangerous. If something goes wrong, then you protect me. That's what you do, right? Protect people. Grace stood straighter. I'm done hiding, done letting other people fight my battles. If you're walking into danger for me, I'm walking in with you. Titan made a soft sound, almost like he was taking her side. Garrett looked at his dog. Don't encourage her. I'm taking her side, Jackson said. She's right. The more we have on record, the better. And if Victor sees Grace, sees her standing up, it might push him to say more. Powerful people get sloppy when they're angry. Garrett looked at Grace for a long moment. You understand what you're agreeing to. Victor Caldwell isn't just powerful. He's dangerous. He's been crushing people for 20 years. If he feels threatened, if he thinks we're trapping him, he could get violent. Then we'll handle it together, Grace said. She expected him to argue more. Expected him to list all the reasons she should stay safe and hidden. Instead, he nodded once. Okay, but you wear a wire too. Double redundancy. And at the first sign of trouble, you get to safety. No arguments. No arguments. Jackson's computer pinged again. He looked at the screen and his expressions changed. We've got a problem. Garrett moved to look. The FBI just called. They're pulling back the investigation. Grace's world tilted. What? Why? Asked. Political pressure. Someone above the field agents shut it down, said there wasn't enough evidence to justify federal resources on a state matter. Garrett studied the screen. Who shut it down? Deputy Director Patterson. He's based in D.C., reports directly to the FBI director. Jackson pulled up Patterson's file. And look at this. He served on Victor Caldwell's campaign committee when Victor ran for county supervisor in 2018. They're friends. Of course they are, Grace whispered. Of course Victor has friends at the FBI. He has friends everywhere. The hope that had been building all day crumbled like sand. 7 witnesses didn't matter. Evidence didn't matter. The FBI wasn't coming to save them. No one was. Garrett's phone rang. Captain Warren again. He answered on speaker. Tell me you have good news. I have terrible news. The Navy's investigation into you just got accelerated. You're being ordered to report to base immediately. Not in 48 hours. Now, if you don't comply, you'll be listed as a WOL. Captain Warren's voice was tight. Let me guess. Victor Caldwell made some calls. Multiple calls to multiple commanders. You've been flagged as a potential threat. They're treating this seriously, Garrett. If you don't report, your career is over. Grace felt the last piece of her hope die. They were taking Garrett away. Taking away the only person who'd been willing to fight. Garrett looked at his watch. Captain, I need 6 hours. That's all? 6 hours to finish what I started. Then I'll report. 6 hours of being a WOL is 6 hours too many. They'll court-martial you. Then they court-martial me. But I finish this first. Garrett. 6 hours, Captain. Tell them I'm in transit. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But I'm not leaving Grace alone with these people. Not now. Not when we're this close. Grace grabbed his arm. Don't do this. Don't throw away your career for me. I'm not worth it. He looked at her with absolute certainty. Yes, you are. He hung up on Captain Warren, turned to Jackson. We're out of time and out of options. The FBI won't help. The Navy's calling me back. We've got one chance to make this stick. He checked his watch again. 5 hours until I meet Victor Caldwell. In those 5 hours, we get every witness statement recorded and documented. We get every piece of evidence uploaded to multiple secure servers. We make sure that even if I get arrested, even if they silence me, this doesn't die. Jackson stood. I'll start uploading everything to encrypted cloud storage, multiple backups, different jurisdictions. Good, Grace. I need you to call every witness again. Tell them to write down their statements. Sign them, scan them, email them to Jackson and to your own email. We create redundancy, make it impossible to destroy. Grace's hands were shaking again, but she picked up the phone, started making calls. Hannah Williams answered on the first ring. What's wrong? I can hear it in your voice. The FBI backed out. The Navy's trying to pull Garrett away. We're running out of time. Grace's voice cracked. I need you to write down everything you told me. Every detail. Send it to us within the hour, because if we don't document this now, it might disappear forever. I'll have it to you in 30 minutes, Hannah said. Grace, don't give up. Please don't give up. But giving up felt inevitable, felt like gravity. 3 more calls, 3 more witnesses promising to send statements, 3 more people fighting against the crushing weight of a system designed to protect the powerful and destroy the weak. By 6 p.m., they had written statements from all 7 witnesses. Jackson had uploaded everything to 5 different secure servers. Garrett had tested the recording equipment 3 times. They were as ready as they'd ever be. Garrett knelt in front of Grace, helped her attach the wire. His hands were steady and professional. You can still back out, he said quietly. Stay here with Jackson. Let me handle Victor alone. Grace met his eyes. No, we do this together. He studied her face. You're not the same person who was on that diner floor 2 nights ago. No, I'm not. She stood, tested the wire. 2 nights ago, I was someone who'd given up. Tonight, I'm someone who's fighting back. Titan stood between them, tail wagging once. Garrett smiled slightly. He approves. Chapter 5, The Confrontation. They drove to Marina Park in Garrett's truck. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Grace sat in the passenger seat with her hands clenched in her lap, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Titan was in the back seat, calm and alert. His presence was steadying. Remember, Garrett said as they pulled into the parking lot, if anything feels wrong, you run. Don't think. Don't hesitate. Just run. I won't leave you. Grace, I won't. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. The parking lot was mostly empty, a few joggers, a couple walking their dog. Normal people living normal lives. Grace wondered what that felt like. To be normal, to not be carrying 2 years of trauma and a wire that might get her killed. At exactly 7 p.m., a black Mercedes S-Class pulled into the lot. Victor Caldwell stepped out alone. He was exactly what Grace expected. Tall, distinguished, silver hair swept back from a face that belonged in boardrooms and country clubs. His suit probably cost more than Grace earned in 6 months. He looked like power in human form. He saw Grace and his expression darkened. You brought the girl, I said, come alone. She's evidence, Garrett said calmly. You'll want to hear what she has to say. Victor's eyes moved over Grace like she was something dirty, something beneath him. Miss Sullivan, I've heard a lot about you. My son says you've been harassing him, making false accusations, trying to extort his family. Grace's voice was steady. Your son left me to die on the pavement 2 years ago. Then your network destroyed my life to cover it up. That's a serious allegation. Do you have proof? We have 7 witnesses, financial records, evidence of tampering, all documented, all ready to go public. Garrett pulled out his phone. Unless we come to an arrangement. Victor pulled an envelope from his jacket. 200,000, Kim, for the footage and your silence. Both of you. You sign NDAs, you disappear. Everyone walks away. Not everyone, Grace said. 9 other victims don't walk away. They stay crushed under your family's power while you buy another year of silence. Victor's mask slipped for just a second. Grace saw the cruelty underneath. 9 people who couldn't prove anything. 9 people who took my money and moved on. Just like you're going to do. He held out the envelope. Take it before I change my mind. What if we don't? Garrett asked. Victor's smile was ice. Then that edited footage of you assaulting my son goes viral. Your Navy career ends. Miss Sullivan has a terrible accident. Tragic, really. Young disabled woman distraught over continued harassment takes her own life. These things happen. Grace's blood turned cold. You're threatening to kill her. Garrett's voice was deadly quiet. I'm explaining reality. People who threaten my family tend to disappear. Ask Officer Burke. Oh, wait, you can't. He's in Montana and terrified to speak to anyone. Victor's smile widened. Or ask that social worker Jennifer Cole. Except she's about to lose her job again. And her custody of her daughter. Amazing that what child services will investigate when they receive anonymous tips. Grace felt rage replace fear. You'd destroy a child's life to protect your son. I'd destroy anyone's life to protect my son. Because that's what fathers do. They protect their children from consequences. From justice. From people like you who think the rules apply to everyone equally. He stepped closer. They don't. The rules are for people like you, Miss Sullivan. People without power, without protection, people who don't matter. Garrett's hand moved toward Titan's vest. The dog's muscles coiled ready. That's where you're wrong, Mr. Caldwell, Garrett said. She matters. They all matter. Every person you've crushed, every victim you've silenced, every life you've destroyed, they all matter. Victor laughed. They matter to who you'll be in military prison by morning. The FBI already dropped the investigation. The local police are paid for. The judges are mine. So tell me, Colonel Hawk, who exactly is going to make them matter? We are, said a voice behind them. They all turned. Jackson stood there. But he wasn't alone. Behind him were all 7 witnesses. Hannah Williams, Rebecca Morgan, William Hayes, Sarah Mitchell, Thomas Burke, Jennifer Cole, and one more Grace hadn't met. And behind them, news cameras. 3 different stations, all recording. Victor's face went white. You recorded this, he whispered. You wore a wire. Multiple wires, Garrett confirmed, and broadcast everything you just said to 5 different news stations. That bit about threatening to kill Grace, about destroying Jennifer's life, about buying judges and police, all recorded. All living, all being reported right now. Grace pulled out her phone, showed Victor the screen, his own face, his own words, streaming on the local news website. The headline, Developer Caldwell Caught Threatening Witness Admitting to Corruption. You can't, Victor said. His composure was cracking. This is entrapment. This is illegal. I'll have every one of you arrested. By which police? Garrett asked. The ones you just admitted to buying, I don't think so. Cars were pulling into the parking lot now. Police cars, but not local ones. California State Police. And behind them, FBI vehicles. A woman in an FBI jacket approached. Victor Caldwell, I'm Special Agent Rachel Cooper with the FBI. We need you to come with us for questioning. This is a setup, political persecution. Your lawyers can meet you at federal lockup. You're being charged with witness intimidation, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. More charges pending. She looked at Garrett. Thank you for the recording, Colonel Hawk. Very helpful. Garrett smiled. Happy to serve. As FBI agents led Victor away in handcuffs, more cars arrived. Judge Montgomery's Mercedes, Senator Ashworth's Lincoln. More FBI agents, more arrests. The corruption network was collapsing in real time. Grace stood frozen watching it happen, watching 20 years of power crumble in 20 minutes. Hannah Williams appeared at her side. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, Grace corrected. All of us. The news crews were approaching now, wanting interviews. Grace looked at Garrett. What do I say? The truth. Always the truth. So Grace faced the cameras and told them everything. About the accident, the silence, the threats, the systematic destruction of 9 lives, and about 7 people who'd found the courage to fight back. When she finished, the reporter asked one more question. What do you want people to know about what happened here? Grace thought about 2 years of being told she didn't matter, about believing it. I want people to know that power isn't permanent, that silence can be broken, that even when the system is designed to crush you, there's always a choice. You can stay silent or you can speak. And speaking, even when you're terrified, even when you're alone, even when everyone says it's pointless, speaking changes everything. She looked at Garrett and Titan. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find people willing to speak with you. People who see you when everyone else looks away. People who decide you matter even when the whole world says you don't. The cameras kept rolling. Somewhere across town, Damian Caldwell, Preston Ashworth, and Scarlett Montgomery were learning that their parents had been arrested, that their protection was gone, that consequences were finally coming. And in a small diner, Dorothy Martinez was watching the news with tears streaming down her face, watching her niece become someone who mattered to the whole world. The news crews were still packing up when Grace's phone started ringing. Numbers she didn't recognize. Reporters, lawyers, people who'd ignored her for 2 years suddenly desperate to talk. She silenced it, turned to Garrett. What happens now? He was watching the FBI vehicles pull away with Victor Caldwell in the back of one. The man's expensive suit looked rumpled now, his distinguished face twisted with rage and something he'd probably never felt before. Real fear. Now we make sure this sticks, Garrett said. Arrests are just the beginning. We need convictions. They'll have the best lawyers money can buy. And we have the truth on camera. Federal charges, multiple witnesses. Garrett looked at her. This isn't going away, Grace. Not this time. Jackson approached, still holding his camera equipment. Every major network is picking up the story. It's going national. County developer arrested on corruption charges. Judge implicated in evidence tampering. Senator's son facing assault charges. This is huge. Grace should have felt victorious, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt hollow. 2 years of her life destroyed, and all it took to get justice was a Navy SEAL with connections and a developer stupid enough to confess on camera. Why did it have to be this hard, she asked. Her voice sounded far away. Why did 9 people have to suffer before anyone cared? Garrett didn't have an answer. Neither did Jackson. Hannah Williams stepped closer. Because the system protects people like Victor Caldwell. It always has. We just forced it to notice us, forced it to care. She touched Grace's arm. That's not nothing. That's everything. A black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Federal plates. An older woman stepped out. Gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, sharp eyes that missed nothing. FBI jacket over a crisp white shirt. Miss Sullivan, I'm Special Agent Rachel Cooper. I'm taking over this investigation from here. She glanced at Garrett. Colonel Hawk, I need to speak with you privately. Garrett's expression didn't change. Am I under arrest? Should you be? I went AWOL to be here, disobeyed direct orders to report to base, conducted an unauthorized investigation. Take your pick. Cooper's mouth twitched slightly. Actually, Captain Warren called me 3 hours ago, explained the situation. I pulled strings with the Navy. You're not AWOL. You're on special assignment, assisting federal investigators. She paused. You're welcome. Grace saw Garrett's shoulders relax fractionally. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet. The Navy still wants to investigate the diner incident. That edited video went viral. They have to respond. Let them investigate. The original footage tells a different story. I know, I've seen it, all of it. Cooper turned to Grace. Miss Sullivan, I need you to come to the field office tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. We'll need a full statement. Everything that happened to you over the past 2 years. Every detail. Every interaction. Can you do that? Grace nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. Cooper handed her a business card. If anyone threatens you, contacts you, approaches you, you call me immediately. You're a federal witness now. That means protection. That means resources. She looked around at the other witnesses. Same goes for all of you. You're under federal protection until this case is resolved. Rebecca Morgan stepped forward. How long will that take? Weeks, months? Could be a year, maybe longer. These cases are complex. The defense will fight every charge. But I promise you this, we don't lose cases we can prove. And thanks to tonight's recording, we can prove everything. After Cooper left with contact information for all 7 witnesses, the crowd began to disperse. News crews headed back to their stations. Witnesses headed home to families who'd be learning about this on the evening news. Jackson headed back to the CHP station to file his own reports. Grace, Garrett, and Titan were left standing in the parking lot as the sun finished setting and the first stars appeared over the ocean. I should get you home, Garrett said. I don't want to go home. I don't want to be alone with this. He understood without her having to explain. My place, then. I've got a guest room. Titan will keep watch. No one's getting near you tonight. They drove in silence. Grace watched the streetlights pass, watched normal people doing normal things, walking by, getting groceries, living lives that didn't include fighting corruption networks and watching developers get arrested. Do you think they'll actually go to prison? She asked. Yes. How can you be so sure? Because they confessed on camera to federal crimes. Even the best lawyers can't erase that. Garrett glanced at her. Victor threatened to kill you, Grace. He admitted to bribing officials, to destroying evidence, to running a criminal enterprise. That's RICO charges. Those don't get plea bargained away. But they're powerful. They have connections. What if those connections go higher than we know? Then we burn those connections down too, one at a time, until there's no one left to hide behind. Grace wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the system would work this time. But she'd trusted the system before. It had failed her spectacularly. Garrett's house was small, neat, military precise. Photos on the wall showed a younger version of him with other soldiers, with Titan in various locations. One photo showed him in dress uniform receiving a medal. Silver Star, he said, noticing her looking, for that firefight I mentioned. The one where we rescued 19 soldiers. Do you miss it, the teams? Every day. But this matters too. Helping people who can't help themselves. Fighting battles that don't involve bullets, but are just as important. He opened the fridge, pulled out water bottles. You hungry? She wasn't. Her stomach was in knots. But she said yes anyway because normal things like eating felt important right now. Garrett made sandwiches, nothing fancy, just turkey and cheese. They ate in silence with Titan lying between them. Grace's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her blood went cold. Unknown number, a text message. The photo attached showed Damian Caldwell, Preston Ashworth, and Scarlett Montgomery. They were in what looked like a lawyer's office. Damian was pointing at the camera. His expression was murderous. The text below read, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Our parents might be arrested, but we're still free. And we're coming for you." The phone nearly slipped from her grip. Garrett took it, read the message. His expression went dark. When was this sent? 2 minutes ago. Grace's voice cracked. They're threatening me again. Even now, even with their parents arrested, they still think they can hurt me. Garrett was already dialing. Agent Cooper, it's Hawk. Grace just received a threatening text from Damian Caldwell, Preston Ashworth, and Scarlett Montgomery. Yes, I'm sending it now. He hung up, made another call. Jackson, I need you to trace a number. Unknown sender. Text message to Grace 15 seconds ago. Yes, another threat. Grace wrapped her arms around herself. They're never going to stop, even if their parents go to prison. Even if everything falls apart. They'll keep coming after me because I dared to fight back. Then we arrest them too. Garrett's voice was steel. Witness intimidation. Criminal threats. Harassment. They just committed federal crimes. We've got the message. We've got proof. Proof didn't matter before. It matters now. Everything's different now. They're not protected anymore. He knelt in front of her. Grace, look at me. She did. You're not alone in this. You've got federal protection. You've got me. You've got Titan. You've got 7 other witnesses who will testify. These kids are scared and desperate and making mistakes. Let them make mistakes. Every threat is more evidence. Titan rested his muzzle against her knee. She buried her fingers in his fur, trying to stop the trembling in her chest. Another text came through. You think you won? You think arresting our parents changes anything? We have lawyers too. We have money too. And we have patience. So enjoy your little victory, because we're all going to destroy you slowly. Make you watch everyone you love suffer first. Grace read it out loud. Garrett's jaw tightened. Forward that to me and Agent Cooper. Save everything. Don't respond. They're threatening Dorothy, my aunt. They're going to hurt her because They're going to do nothing because the FBI is already sending agents to her house. Because we've documented their threats. Because threatening a federal witness is a felony. Garrett took her phone, forwarded the messages himself. These kids are used to getting away with everything. They don't understand that threatening you now is the stupidest thing they could possibly do. His phone rang. Agent Cooper, we've got units heading to your location and to Dorothy Martinez's house. We're also issuing arrest warrants for Damian Caldwell, Preston Ashworth, and Scarlett Montgomery. Federal witness tampering, criminal threats. They'll be in custody within the hour. Grace could hear Cooper's voice through the speaker. What if they run? Grace asked. What if they disappear before you can arrest them? Then we find them. These are rich kids who've never had to hide before. They'll use credit cards. They'll go somewhere comfortable. They'll make mistakes. Cooper paused. Miss Sullivan, I know you're scared, but you need to trust us. We're going to protect you. After Cooper hung up, Grace sat in Garrett's living room and tried to process everything. 48 hours ago, she'd been a cleaning lady who'd given up on justice. Now she was a federal witness with protection details and arrest warrants being issued in her name. This doesn't feel real, she whispered. It's real. All of it. The arrests, the protection, the justice. Garrett sat beside her. You made this happen, Grace. You refused to stay silent. You stood up when it was easier to hide. You trusted me when you had no reason to. This is real because you made it real. I just wanted them to leave me alone. I never wanted this to become national news. Never wanted FBI protection. Never wanted... She broke off. I just wanted my life back. You'll get it back. Better than before. Because now you're not carrying this alone. Now there's a record. Now there's accountability. Grace's phone rang. Dorothy. She answered with trembling fingers. Tia. Mija, there are FBI agents at my house. They say someone threatened me. They say they're here to protect me. Dorothy sounded more annoyed than scared. I told them I don't need protection. I have my skillet and my faith in God. But they won't leave. Despite everything, Grace almost smiled. Let them stay, Tia. Please. These people are dangerous. More dangerous than me. I survived worse than spoiled rich kids. They threatened to hurt you because I testified. Dorothy went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Mija, listen to me, Mom. I am proud of you. Prouder than I've ever been. You stood up to monsters. You fought back when everyone said you couldn't. You won. She paused. So if some FBI agents want to sit in my driveway and eat my cooking while they protect me, fine. Let them, but you don't apologize for bringing this to my door. You hear me? Grace's tears started again. I hear you. Good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow you make sure these people go to prison for a very long time. After she hung up, Garrett handed her a tissue. Your aunt's terrifying. She raised me after my parents died in a car crash when I was 8, taught me to stand up for myself, to fight back against bullies. Grace wiped her eyes. I forgot those lessons somewhere along the way. Forgot how to be strong. You didn't forget. You were surviving. There's a difference. Garrett checked his watch. It's almost 9. You should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He showed her to the guest room. Clean sheets, a lamp. A window that looked out over a small yard. Door locks from the inside, bathrooms across the hall. I'll be in the living room. Titan will patrol. You're safe here. Grace wanted to ask him to stay, wanted to not be alone with her thoughts, but she just nodded. Thank you for everything, for believing me when no one else did, for fighting when it was easier to walk away. She paused. For helping me remember I matter. Garrett's expression softened. Some people couldn't see your worth. Their blindness, not your flaw. After he left, Grace sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her phone. The threatening texts were still there, still venomous, still proof that even now, even with everything falling apart, Damien and Preston and Scarlett wanted to hurt her. But below those texts were messages from the other witnesses. Hannah thanking her for her courage. William saying he felt free for the first time in years. Rebecca saying her father called from Montana crying, finally able to speak the truth. 7 people finding their voices because she'd found hers first. Grace lay down but didn't sleep. She listened to Titan's footsteps in the hallway, to Garrett moving quietly in the other room, to the normal sounds of a house at night. For the first time in 2 years, she felt safe. Chapter 7. The night of broken glass. Grace woke to the sound of breaking glass. Not at Garrett's house. Somewhere distant, but close enough to make Titan bolt upright, ears rigid, a low growl rumbling from his chest. Garrett was already moving, phone in hand. Jackson, talk to me. Grace sat up, her pulse hammered in her throat. Evelyn Caldwell's house, Garrett said into the phone. When how many? He listened, his jaw tightened. We're moving, now. He hung up, looked at Grace. Evelyn called 911 10 minutes ago. Said someone broke into her house. 3 men, armed. FBI's responding, but she gave us the evidence, Grace finished. Michael knows, he's coming for her. Get dressed, bring your phone, we're going. Garrett, the FBI said. The FBI is 20 minutes out. Evelyn might not have 20 minutes. They drove through empty streets, Titan in the back alert and ready. Grace forced herself to breathe, counted streetlights to keep from panicking. Evelyn Caldwell lived in a modest house in La Jolla, not a mansion, not ostentatious. Just a quiet home where an old woman with terminal cancer was trying to die with her conscience clear. The front door was open. Garrett killed the engine 2 houses down, pulled his sidearm from the glove box. Stay in the truck. Lock the doors. If anything happens, you drive away. You call Cooper. You don't look back. I'm not leaving. Grace, his eyes were steel. If I'm worried about you, I can't protect her. Please. She nodded, hated herself for it, but nodded. Garrett and Titan moved toward the house. Shadows in the darkness. Silent. Professional. Grace counted her heartbeats. 100. 200. Then gunfire. 3 shots. Sharp cracks that shattered the suburban quiet. Grace grabbed her phone. Dialed Cooper. "This is Grace Sullivan. Shots fired at Evelyn Caldwell's residence, 4277 Nautilus Street, La Jolla. Garrett Hawk and federal witness inside. Send everyone." She hung up, stared at the house. 30 seconds of silence. Then Garrett appeared in the doorway, supporting someone. Evelyn Caldwell, thin and frail, blood on her nightgown. Grace unlocked the truck, jumped out. "I told you to stay where she hit." "Grazed. She's okay." Behind them, a man stumbled from the house. Tall, silver-haired like Victor, but older, harder. His suit was European cut, expensive, the kind of man who directed empires from Geneva boardrooms. Michael Caldwell. He had a gun, raised it toward Garrett's back. "Garrett!" Garrett spun, pushed Evelyn behind him. Titan was faster. 85 pounds of trained aggression launched across the lawn. Teeth found Michael's gun hand. Bone crunched. The weapon clattered to the pavement. Michael screamed, tried to shake the dog off. Titan held, trained not to release until commanded. Sirens in the distance. Growing louder, Michael's face twisted with rage and pain. He pulled a knife from his belt with his free hand. Stabbed downward. "No!" Titan yelped, released, stumbled backward. Blood matted his right flank, dark and spreading fast. Grace felt the world slow down, felt every heartbeat like a drum. Garrett had his gun up, aimed at Michael's center mass. "Drop the knife, now!" Michael laughed, blood from Titan's bite dripping down his wrist. "You think you won? You think exposing Victor changes anything? I've been running this operation for 20 years from Geneva. Victor was just the face. Just the puppet. I'm on the ground, now!" FBI vehicles screeched to a stop. Agents poured out. Tactical gear, weapons drawn. Michael looked at the wall of federal agents, at his bleeding hand, at Garrett's unwavering aim, at Titan's blood pooling on the manicured lawn. He dropped the knife. "Michael Caldwell," Agent Cooper's voice rang out. "You're under arrest for attempted murder witness, intimidation, and conspiracy to commit murder, among other charges we'll be adding." As they cuffed him, Grace ran to Titan. The dog was down, breathing shallow and rapid, the knife wound in his flank bleeding freely. "No, no, no." Grace pressed her hands against the wound. Hot blood soaked through her fingers. "Stay with me, boy. Please stay with me." Garrett was there, phone already dialing. "Emergency vet, this is Colonel Hawk. I have a 9-year-old German Shepherd military working dog stab wound to the right flank, possible arterial involvement. I'm 10 minutes out." He scooped Titan into his arms. 70 pounds of injured dog carried like he weighed nothing. "Grace, drive." She drove. Ran every red light between La Jolla and the emergency animal hospital on Miramar Road. Garrett in the back hands pressed to Titan's wound, talking to the dog in a low, steady voice. "Stay with me, boy. You've been through worse. Remember Kandahar? You took shrapnel and kept working. This is nothing, just a scratch. Stay with me." Titan's amber eyes found his handler's face. His tail thumped once against the seat. Grace's vision blurred with tears, but she didn't slow down. The emergency hospital doors burst open before they even parked. A team was waiting. Gurney, IV equipment, moving with practiced efficiency. "Stab wound right flank," Garrett said. His voice was controlled, but his hands were shaking. "Possible femoral artery involvement. He's lost maybe a pint." "We've got him," the lead vet said. "You did good getting him here this fast." They wheeled Titan through double doors marked surgery. Garrett stood frozen, blood Titan's blood covering his hands, his shirt, his jeans. Grace took his arm, guided him to a chair in the waiting room. "He's going to be okay," she said. Tried to believe it. "He's strong. He's survived worse. He's 9 years old. That knife was close to the femoral. If it nicked the artery, then they'll fix it. They're professionals. They know what they're doing." Garrett stared at his bloody hands. "He saved Evelyn, saved me, and I let him get stabbed. You didn't let anything happen. Michael Caldwell is a killer. Titan did his job, protected his handler and the witness." Grace knelt in front of him. "Now we do our job. We wait. We hope. We pray, if you know how. I haven't prayed since my mother died. Then I'll pray for both of us." The surgery took 6 hours. Grace and Garrett sat in the waiting room, neither speaking, both staring at the door marked "Surgery in Progress." Agent Cooper called twice. Michael Caldwell was in federal custody, facing 40 years minimum. Evelyn was at the hospital treated and released under FBI protection. But none of that mattered if Titan didn't make it. At 3 a.m., the surgeon emerged, still in blood-stained scrubs. Her face was tired, but her eyes were kind. Garrett stood. Grace saw his hands, the hands that never shook in combat, trembling. "He's stable," the surgeon said. Garrett's knees buckled. Grace caught him, held him up while he broke down in a way she'd never seen. "The knife nicked the femoral artery," the surgeon continued. "Another centimeter, and we would have lost him before you got him here. But we got it, repaired the artery, stopped the bleeding. He'll need weeks of recovery, physical therapy. He'll have a permanent limp, but he'll live." "Can I see him?" Garrett's voice was raw. "He's in recovery. Still under anesthesia, but yes, come." They followed her to a small room. Titan lay on a padded table, bandaged from shoulder to hip. An IV in his leg, monitors beeping softly. Garrett placed his hand on the dog's head. "Good boy," he whispered. "Best boy. You saved her. You saved all of us." Titan's tail twitched. Even unconscious, he knew his handler's voice. Grace stepped back. "Let them have this moment." And she pulled out her phone. Opened the Foundation's social media, the page they'd created just yesterday. Posted a photo of Titan from before. Strong, proud. Vest reading K9-847. Caption: "This is Titan. Tonight he saved a federal witness and took a knife doing it. He needs surgery. $9,000. If you've ever loved a wing, if you've ever believed in justice, please help. Every dollar matters." She hit send. Within 20 minutes, the fundraiser had raised $3,000. Within an hour, $12,000. By morning, $28,000. People Grace had never met sending $10, $50, $100. Veterans groups, K9 organizations, police departments, strangers who saw a hero and decided he mattered. One comment from user Veteran Dad 67, "Paid $500. My son died in Kandahar 2011. Dogs like Titan brought him home to us. Least I can do. Semper Fi." Another from K9 handler _retired. "These dogs give everything. Time we gave back. $1,000 sent. Tell Titan he's a good boy." Grace showed Garrett the screen. He read, nodded, couldn't speak. At dawn, Titan woke up. His eyes found Garrett first, then Grace. His tail managed one weak wag. "Hey boy," Garrett whispered, "you scared me." Titan's tongue flicked out, licked Garrett's hand, and Grace understood something she'd never quite grasped before. Love wasn't just between people. It was between a soldier and his dog, a victim and her rescuer, a broken woman in a foundation built on refusal to stay silent. Love was the thing that made you fight when fighting seemed pointless, made you stand when standing seemed impossible, made you matter when the world said you didn't. Titan had taught her that, and she'd never forget it. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. 2 weeks after Michael's arrest, Grace received a call from Evelyn's hospice nurse. "She's asking for you. She doesn't have long, maybe hours." Grace drove to the hospice with Garrett. Titan stayed home, still recovering, still limping, but alive. Evelyn's room was small, quiet. Sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked the ocean she'd never see again. She looked impossibly frail. The cancer had taken everything except her will. "Grace," her voice was barely audible. "You came." "Of course I came," Evelyn smiled, gestured weakly to a manila envelope on the bedside table. "My lawyer has the trust documents. $45 million for your foundation. But I wanted," she coughed, grimaced with pain, "wanted to give you this myself." Grace opened the envelope, a handwritten letter, shaky script that wandered across expensive stationery. "My dear Grace, I built the cage that imprisoned you. I taught Victor that money could buy anything, including silence. I showed Michael that power meant never facing consequences. I was wrong. You showed me that some things can't be bought. Courage, truth, the refusal to stay silent even when silence is easier. I can't undo the years I stole from you. Can't bring back your leg or your scholarship or the girl you were before my family broke you. But I can help you build something new. Something that makes sure no other Grace gets crushed by people like me. Thank you for giving an old woman a chance at redemption. I'll meet God knowing I tried at the end to do right. With gratitude and regret, Evelyn Caldwell." Grace looked up. Evelyn's eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. "Mrs. Caldwell." The nurse stepped forward, checked the monitors. "She's sleeping. It won't be long now. Maybe you should say goodbye." Grace took the old woman's hand, paper-thin skin over bird bones. "Thank you," Grace whispered, "for choosing courage, for helping us fight back, for showing me that it's never too late to do the right thing. Evelyn's fingers squeezed hers, barely. But there, then released. The monitors flatlined. The nurse moved to turn them off, to call the time of death. Grace stood there holding the hand of a woman who'd helped destroy her and then helped save her. And she cried for both the villain and the hero Evelyn Caldwell had been. 3 months later, Grace stood in a federal courtroom and watched justice delivered with the weight of hammers. Victor Caldwell, 28 years in federal prison. Judge Montgomery, 20 years. Senator Ashworth, 20 years. Michael Caldwell, 40 years for attempted murder on top of the RICO charges. Damian Caldwell, 15 years for vehicular manslaughter, assault, witness tampering. Preston Ashworth, 12 years. Scarlett Montgomery, 5 years. Her cooperation had reduced her sentence, but the judge made clear that participating in systematic cruelty had consequences. 12 other officials, 5 to 15 years each. 7 police officers stripped of badges and prison pensions revoked. The corruption network that had controlled the county for 2 decades was dismantled in a single trial. All 7 witnesses testified. Hannah Williams told the jury about seeing Damian run Grace down and being threatened into silence with photos of her children. Rebecca Morgan described Preston's assault and watching her university take donation money to make it disappear. William Hayes explained how police refused to believe a decorated veteran could be attacked by a college kid. Sarah Mitchell detailed years of harassment and mysteriously rejected college applications. Thomas Burke admitted to being transferred to Montana for investigating the Caldwell family. Jennifer Cole broke down, describing 3 years of living in fear. And when it was Grace's turn to speak at the sentencing hearing, she looked at the people who'd tried to destroy her, and she told them exactly what their cruelty had cost. You took my leg, my scholarship, 3 jobs, 2 apartments, my dignity, 2 years of my life. She paused, her voice strengthened. You made me believe I was worthless, that I didn't matter, that people like me just had to accept being crushed by people like you. She looked each of them in the eye. But you were wrong. I do matter. Every person you hurt matters. Every life you destroyed matters. And you're going to spend the next 20 years remembering that. Every time you look at a prison cell and realize that all your money and power couldn't save you from consequences. The judge nodded. Well said, Miss Sullivan, and I hope your words echo in these defendants' minds for a very long time. After the sentencing, Grace walked out of the courthouse with Garrett, Titan, and Dorothy. Her aunt had recovered fully, insisted on being there for the verdict, insisted on watching the people who'd threatened her family face justice. Media swarmed them, but this time Grace didn't hide. Miss Sullivan, how do you feel? I feel like justice is real, like fighting back matters, like no one is too powerful to face consequences for their actions. What's next for you? Grace looked at Garrett, at Dorothy, at the 7 other witnesses who'd stood beside her through everything. I'm starting a foundation for victims of corruption and abuse, to provide legal support, financial assistance, protection. Everything I wish I'd had 2 years ago. She paused. We're calling it Grace's Voice Foundation, because that's what we did. We found our voices when everyone said we should stay silent, and we're going to help others do the same. She looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this and you're being crushed by powerful people who think they're untouchable, I want you to know something. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And if you stand up, if you refuse to be silenced, there are people who will stand with you. Her voice grew fierce. I promise you that. Chapter 9, The Legacy. 1 year later, Grace stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Grace's Voice Foundation's first office. The building was modest but bright. Large windows, comfortable furniture, photos on the wall of all 9 witnesses who'd found their courage. Dorothy stood beside Grace as executive director, having sold the diner to fund her full-time commitment to the foundation. Garrett had taken a position as head of security while still serving as a Navy SEAL consultant, splitting his time between protecting victims and training the next generation of warriors. Titan was there too, older now, grayer around the muzzle, his limp more pronounced, but his eyes still sharp, still protective. The foundation's therapy dog and living reminder that heroes came in all forms. Hannah Williams had become their lead counselor, helping victims find their voices and rebuild their lives. Rebecca Morgan ran their legal aid program, providing free representation to those who couldn't afford justice. William Hayes managed their financial assistance fund, ensuring no victim went homeless or hungry while fighting their battles. Sarah Mitchell headed their witness protection coordination, working with law enforcement to keep the vulnerable safe. Thomas Burke served as their law enforcement liaison, a reformed cop trying to make amends by helping others navigate a broken system. Jennifer Cole ran their outreach program finding victims before they gave up hope. 9 victims had become 9 advocates, 9 voices that refused to stay silent. Grace's phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn's lawyer. The trust fund was officially transferred. $45 million dedicated to supporting victims of corruption and abuse. All of it going to Grace's foundation. Grace showed the message to Garrett. 45 million, she whispered. We can help thousands of people, provide protection, legal support, everything they need to fight back. Garrett smiled. You already changed the world, Grace. Now you're just making sure the change lasts. IT statistics appeared on screens behind them as they cut the ribbon. Year 1 impact. 847 victims assisted. $3.2 million in legal aid provided. 73 families protected. 31 corruption cases exposed. 7 copycat foundations established nationwide. Grace looked at the numbers and felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Pride. That evening, Grace returned to Dorothy's diner. New owners now. A young couple who'd promised Dorothy they'd keep the name, keep the community focus, keep the booth where everything had started. Grace sat in that booth, the one where 3 rich kids had grabbed her by the hair and humiliated her, where a Navy SEAL and his K-9 partner had walked in and changed her life forever. Garrett slid into the seat across from her. Titans settled at their feet with a contented sigh. You know what I realized, Grace said. 2 years ago, sitting in this exact spot, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never matter, never be anything more than a victim. She smiled. And now I run a foundation that helps hundreds of people. Now I have a voice that actually gets heard. Now I'm the person other victims call when they need help standing up. She paused. Now I matter. Not because someone told me I did, but because I decided I did. Garrett reached across the table, took her hand. Some people couldn't see your worth, he said quietly. Their blindness, not your flaw. Grace squeezed his hand. But you did, from the very first moment, when everyone else looked away. That's what good people do, Garrett said. They see others, they help others. They refuse to accept that anyone deserves to be crushed. He paused. You're good people, Grace Sullivan. Always have been. Titan's tail thumped against the floor. Agreement. Dorothy, visiting from the foundation office, brought them coffee without being asked, smiled at them the way she always had, without pity, without sadness, just pure pride. My brave girl, she said. Look at you now. Grace looked around the diner, at the photos on the wall, pictures of all 9 witnesses, pictures of the foundation's opening, newspaper headlines about the convictions. A reminder that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they chose courage over comfort. She thought about the scared, broken woman who'd been on this floor 3 years ago. Hair being pulled, hand being stepped on, dignity being destroyed. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd learned that mattering wasn't about what other people thought. It was about what you chose to do when the world told you to give up. Grace Sullivan had chosen to fight back, had chosen to stand up, had chosen to matter. And because of that choice, 9 other people had found their courage. Hundreds more would find theirs. A corruption network that had lasted 20 years had been destroyed. Justice had been served. Epilogue. The call. Grace stood at the window, looked out at the street where her life had almost ended 3 years ago. The street where Damian Caldwell's BMW had run her down. The street where she'd died twice. The street where she'd learned that scars can become armor instead of chains. Garrett joined her. His hand found hers. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about a girl who died on that street, who came back different, broken in some ways, stronger in others. She turned to him. I'm thinking that God doesn't waste anything, not even pain, not even the worst thing that ever happened to you. Garrett nodded slowly. My chaplain in Afghanistan used to say, God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. Do you believe that? I didn't. Not for a long time. He looked at her. But watching you fight back, watching you turn your pain into purpose, yeah, I believe it now. Grace's phone rang. A trembling voice. Miss Sullivan, my name is Amanda. I saw your interview. I need help. They said no one would believe me, but I thought maybe you... Grace's voice was steady, strong. Amanda, you are safe now. I believe you. And I'm going to help you. You're not alone anymore. She hung up, looked at Garrett. Another one. Another one you'll save. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold that looked like Grace itself. Behind them on the wall hung a framed verse. The first donation to the foundation had paid for it. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. Proverbs 12:10. Below it a photo, Titan at 9 years old, gray-muzzled, but proud, wearing his K9 vest one last time before full retirement. He'd lived to age 12, died peacefully in his sleep with Garrett beside him, buried with military honors at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery. Full honors, 21 gun salute, taps played over a flag-draped casket. Garrett had cried that day, so had Grace. So had 200 veterans who'd never met Titan but knew what dogs like him meant. He saved more than my life, Garrett had said at the service. He saved my purpose, reminded me that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for. Now standing in the diner, Grace touched the photo frame. He'd be proud, Garrett said softly, of what you built, of what we all built. We built it together. You, me, Titan, Dorothy, 9 witnesses who found their voices. She paused, and thousands more who will. Grace's phone rang again. Another victim, another voice waiting to be heard. She looked at Garrett, at Dorothy wiping down the counter, at the photo of Titan watching over them all, and she answered the call. Grace's Voice Foundation, this is Grace. Tell me your story. I'm listening. Because that's what heroes do. They listen, they help. They refuse to let the powerful crush the powerless. They stand up, and they never ever stop fighting for what's right, no matter what. God bless you all, and may He bless every voice brave enough to speak.